I'm preparing for champs and giggles, and this is reality of it, isn't it? And I'm all for reality and expressing how the emotions are. And so I've had to ask someone, could you tell me a little bit about me and what I went through? Because the memory retains traumatic experiences. And so it overrides the journey, when you're telling the story. You get pulled right back into the powerful parts of, have I got you hooked yet? Have I got you hooked? And so I'm preparing for champs and giggles, and this is reality of it, into expressing emotions. I do lives for a living. I do talks for a living. I help the community for a living, but I talk about those emotions as just like I am now. Not scripted, telling them in here step by step how I feel about a presentation. Now I'm not scripted. I'm not a scripted person. And so I'm easy to reel off, just like I am now, the things I want to say. However, it's a presentation, and it's a Zoom one. And I've seen the way they do a presentation, and it's been really educational and a very good impact. And I want to tell them what I do and where I am and what I'm doing now. But I like to do things in my way. It's my love language, isn't it? So anyway, so I'm going to read off a little bit of what um, has been written and helped me and for me to look over. So here it goes. My name is Kerry Mussington, age 50, born and raised in Ipswich, Suffolk. I have three adult sons, aged 32, 28, and 25. My childhood was a varied one, with myself and my siblings being moved around from care home to care home, as my parents did not always provide a stable and suitable home environment for us. Living in Suffolk was particularly difficult during the 70s and the 80s. I'm old now, due to the fact that I had a white mother and a black father. Racism was a constant reminder that you were different, even though my mother was white. For those who do not know, the East of England was a home of thousands of American servicemen and women of military bases are located near to the coast. I found myself falling in love with those servicemen and moving to America for a short time when my second son was born. After my third son was born, I got married and spent 12 years raising my family before we went our separate ways. It was then I found myself on my own as my children had grown up and in turn brought me grandchildren. Whilst living on my own, I found myself in a situation I never thought I'd be in, and that was a prisoner in my own home. After my son left home, I decided to downside to a smaller property, I apologise. I moved into a new home thinking it was going to be the start of something good. However, I was mistaken, and a 3-year nightmare began. My upstairs neighbour began to show an unhealthy interest in me from the moment I moved in. He wanted to do everything for me. However, I made it clear I was there to live and not engage in relationships with him, as I already had a relationship in process. To my surprise, the neighbour turned on me. He began to play loud music day and night, cut off my electricity supply in my flat. He installed a camera in the communal area to watch me, and he racially abused me. I took my complaints to the landlord, who in turn told me I was crazy. He'd seen my type before. The landlord disregarded everything I told him and believed the neighbour over me. Over the next 6 months, I was in constant communications with the police, the council, and every self-help organisation you could mention, but no avail. I felt as a black woman my life was not worth anything, and I was treated worse than a second-class citizen. The authorities chose to protect the neighbour over me due to his lengthy criminal background, and equally conspired with the landlord to help evict me from the property in question. Once evicted, I found myself homeless and at the mercy of the same authorities who suggest I leave my home, town, and try another borough. On taking their advice, I was promptly given a place to stay which I can only describe as a bail hostel 50 miles away from my partner and my family network. Although grateful for a partial roof over my head, there were conditions I had to adhere to in order to keep this room, such as no visitors after 10 o'clock, and equally no overnight stays, which combined with less than adequate cooking facilities took its toll on my mental health state. After living in a box for 6 months, I was offered temporary flat, which was nearer to my friends and family and far better equipped. Although there were still conditions to adhere to, such as no overnight stays, the whole process lasted approximately 18 months, and during this time I had amassed a mountain of paperwork to every authority you could imagine. I had logged complaints. I had complaints logged with 2 councils. I had complaints logged with the PRS, Private Property Ombudsman, and further to this I had complaints logged with Suffolk Police, which was taken to the IPCC, which is the Independent Police Complaints Commission. After months of legal wranglings, I won my case against the PRS, and then I went on to win my cases against the council, and I was awarded compensation, and in turn I won the case against the police. They refused to disclose their reasons for their officers' actions. Ultimately, I was finally offered a permanent home where I now reside, and I'm in the process of rebuilding my life. This story is the beginning of the whole of who the Mom Project Mind Over Matter was born. I wanted to create an organisation to help people who found themselves in similar situations like my own. I was offered a place on a business course on University Ipswich and successfully completed it and launched the project July the 19th, 2019. Since then, the project has helped numerous of people with their housing, police, debt management, and in some cases, domestic violence. The project has then moved up a gear to me taking the hosting classes, helping people develop themselves and giving them the tools to fight for their rights. As we all know, COVID-19 has caused unbelievable heartache and social distancing prevented me from continuing classes. However, like everyone else, I morphed into the world of Zoom, and I took those classes to another level in the form of open talk, and more recently, I found myself hosting interviews with people from all walks of life, such as Errol McKenna, MBE, and Jemmy Reese regarding prostate cancer, and the comedian author Peter Francis. I also made it to the Sun newspaper, where I was interviewed about my earlier life and struggle, along with an interview about my project on BBC. Yeah. I also made it to the Sun newspaper, where I was interviewed about the earlier life and struggles, along with an interview about my project on the BBC Suffolk. Further to this, I have been a regular feature on Crime Lab radio show hosted by Intelligence Service Investigations, Ipswich Community Radio, ICFM FM 105.7. Going forward, I hope to be part of Ultravision, where I potentially with be. Oh, there's a spelling mistake here. Going forward, I hope to be part of Ultravision, where I can potentially be hosting my own show and talk about mental health and raising awareness in the community. Do you know what? That was really beautiful, the way they saw that and they read that out to me. And although I couldn't look and read, because reading is not really my forte much, but yeah, I got the gist of it. Will I use it? Yeah. Yeah. And I think if I elaborate on it, we're talking about, if we've brought my parents into it. We've talked about my home life, my upbringing. There's a lot of abuse in that where, an outsider who was inside the family four walls, um, yeah, stole my childhood. And then, you go on to a lot of unhealthy relationships, there's domestic violence, all of those came into play, and it just whittles you down and crushes your self-esteem. So building that back up, that's what I had to do to achieve. Unfortunately, I developed a label and a diagnosis, which isn't mentioned, but it should be, because what I want to teach people is, yes, we can avoid those labels if we can have the right teachings and the right community to help us achieve and to show us a better way. And I don't think it wasn't about showing a better way. We're talking about those days where it was very difficult. It was basic needs at home. I never had any toys. We had one Christmas where I did get a few presents. I remember that. But for a few years, I never really had a toy to play with. My mom was education, I suppose, but whatever they could afford, they did the best. Yeah, in and out. But the majority of it, very valuable lessons out of life. I've taken some very valuable lessons out of life. So I'm getting prepped for Champs and Giggles. It was a Friday night, yeah, and it's every Friday night, and it's on Zoom, and it's Champs and Giggles. You know, you can find it on my page. Look at my page if you're curious. You can find Champs and Giggles. Just put it in, you'll find it. There's enough videos. Um, Champs and Giggles means a lot to me now because I feel I found my place. I feel I have been accepted. I feel not indifferent. Just genuine amongst genuine, nice, kind people with manners and respect. My kind of people, you know. And I think I put myself in that arena by accepting the fact that there was an invitation. I took it upon the invitation to open my eyes and say, you know what, let me see what this is about. It was the best thing I ever done. I have met some brilliant people, amazing talent, gifted. They've showcased education in ways that should have been done in school. You know, if this was done an hour a day of education to our children, they would learn so much and become young entrepreneurs. They don't need to wait till they're an adult to become an entrepreneur. They don't. And you know, when you've got business mentoring skills, you can actually teach them to develop a business now rather than wait till they're older. There's no need to wait till they're older. There isn't. You know, I've got a granddaughter at the end of the day. She said, Nan, can you go and get me some interviews, please? Yes, no problem. My granddaughter would like to interview you because she would like to know about education, black history, mental health, and how to deal with life. She likes to learn life skills. And to ask questions is to gain knowledge. To retain knowledge is to keep going and exploring what you're already gained. So you might have knowledge, but you need to go further out there and find more knowledge because that's never going to be the end of knowledge. So, you know, I can't wait to get out there and make that difference, more of a difference. Spreading awareness, it's a doddle, isn't it? It's like, for once, and this is the way I look at it, for once, you know, your voice through the pain that you're going through, you know, you don't project it out in the right manner when you don't know about your recovery. You don't project out your voice in the right manner. So there's a lot of screaming and shouting and effort and blinding and blah, 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 you know. But as you grow, as you go through this recovery, it's more like, let's replace that because it's negative. And all those people that try to silence me, that doesn't work anymore, does it? Because now I'm hoping they would see common sense to say, you know what, point taken. If we'd have been kind, perhaps, perhaps you wouldn't have been here. If it would have been kind, yeah, I wouldn't have been here, would I? I wouldn't have had this project. I wouldn't have had the lessons and developed, turned my experiences, my traumatic experiences into um, this project, it wouldn't have happened because I didn't see myself years ago actually developing a project. I saw myself going out weekends, at home, cooking, juggling life, being a mum, trying to be a single mum, also, and then having a life away from mum, being just Kerry. And, just being Kerry. I wanted more being Kerry because I just felt like I'd been a parent for many, many years. But not very good parent, did the best of my ability. But the tools that I was taught that I'm learning from my parents, but I did a bit better. I managed to hold on to my children and they did not go into a care home. So I guess that's the start of breaking the cycle, even though I was a child from a care home. Yeah. I wasn't always with my parents, no. In fact, we were dropped off from pillar to post. But that was life back then, isn't it? You try and stop the children from going through that, so that's what you call breaking the cycle. And then how do we overcome the depression? How do we teach to overcome depression? Or recognize depression? How do we do that? It's very difficult to do that, isn't it? Recognize depression if you're not taught that. You're just taught that someone's being loud or someone's being drunk or someone's being aggressive. That was the way of learning what depression was, except for they didn't title it. It was called abuse back then. And it didn't matter which way it was coming from. It was abuse. And I was surrounded by it. Completely surrounded by abuse. And that was teaching me to do that. If anyone trouble you, don't let them. And my first fight, which I didn't want, was being bullied. And I said to my mum, I'm being bullied. Mum, they're picking on me. They don't like the colour of my skin. My mum says, don't wait for someone to hit you next time they ask for a fight. Knock them out. I took notice of my mother and I knocked them out. And I put stitches in their leg. Yeah. Very young age. And that cost me court. My first time in court. I thought, hold on a minute, I didn't start the fight, I certainly finished it. But here I am going to court now. But yet nobody took them to court when they started it. They find that bullies, when they start something and you finish it, they then want justice. But they started it. So I learned that people bullied their way through life, and that's not the way, is it? It isn't the way. I hated fighting, I hated drama, hated arguments, but I would defend myself if I had to. That was the thing back then. You didn't worry about calling the police, you took care of it in your own back garden. You took it out where it had to be. If it was the street, it was the street. If it was a home, it was a home. It didn't matter. But you took care of your reputation and your estate. I never really look at life like that, but that's exactly what was going on as a kid, isn't it? They would gang and come with their gangs. Oh, look, come on, let's have a fight with her. Why? What have I done? We just don't like the way you look. We just don't like it. And you find yourself fighting for that survival over and over and over again. Never quite fitting in. Not even got a stable home. Found myself plunging in dancing, music, only because I saw my sister do it. I wanted a piece of that. Music. She showed me music. My parents showed me music, but she showed me dance. She used to dance, and I thought, I want to be that. I like the way she danced, but I don't dance like her. I've got to have to dance like this. More expressive, more fame, more express and creative arts. That's me. Dramatized. That's me when I'm dancing. Because that was my way of getting rid of the aggression. And then there's the ballerina. Never really quite did the ballerina, although I did ballerina classes, but not too many because we couldn't afford the gear. Another avenue where you can't quite do what you want because money is not there. Wow. Lightness. extraordinary. The more I talked, the more flashbacks of opportunity that I'd seen. You know, when the Princess Trust came, so did Prince Charles. It was a proud moment, although I didn't get to meet him. My brothers did, and they got photographs with him. hmm That was a proud moment because it showed culture. They were highlighting culture change, bridging the gap between the community, making a community. You know, good old Charles, Prince Charles. Yeah. And, you know, the times when I was at home, when I wasn't in a care home, the times that I was at home, it was pretty awesome sometimes because there would be a lot of dancing, there would be music, and my brothers would always form a band in the small room, which was painted black and red at the time. Triangles all the way around the room, and my brother became very successful. They had their own band, Soul Seekers, Soul Asylum, hmm and he played with the likes of Jackie Graham and David Grant and oh my gosh, Sinead O'Connor and Dina Carroll, and even though I sort of the only person I got to meet was Jackie Graham. My God, someone famous, somebody well known, and you know that was an opportunity. My brother done really well for himself. He like took his opportunity, whatever was going on in his life, and plunged it into the world of music, and he became very popular. Professional drummer, played for a lot of professional people, all the way around the world. I'm very proud of him, even though he doesn't speak to me anymore. I'm very proud of him. And I think that was my choice, not really realising that it's not really a choice I wanted. I just wanted to be understood that I'm not that little girl anymore. I'd like for them to understand that I'm a woman. Behind that, behind this woman, yes, there's scar tissues and traumatic events, not only for me, perhaps for them too, but it's something we never really came together and talked about. I'd like for them to learn to overcome judgment, because I had to. You know, we might have been brought up in a chapter of our lives at that point, but from that point, I've had a lot more trauma added to my life and a lot more survival tactics. A lot more survival tactics. I've had to survive things that perhaps they would never comprehend. Perhaps they don't know what to do with those emotions, but or how to confront anything, but it's fine, they don't need to. It's just a hi, bye, how are you? I'm good, thanks. What are you doing with your life? Well, this is what I'm doing. Oh, brilliant, nice one, okay, what are you up to? You know, conversation, vice versa. But that word family, you build a family outside of the family that you once had, because that family you once had is no longer around. So you find a common interest, where my common interest back then was looking forward to going to my mother's house on a Sunday when they got their life in order and having our dinners and stuff like that, and Christmas and coming together when they got themselves together. That was family. They knew what culture was, they knew what coming together was as well. That was family. And so it wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad. I think the door was open to too many people. Too many people that gave us different learned behaviour. And some of that learned behaviour was really what I would call, well, I wouldn't want that around my children. Although I would say that some of the life that I did that myself. Monday to Friday I was a parent. On a weekend I was a mess. Didn't get a sitter, I was a mess. If I didn't get a sitter, I was up to the social club where you could take children. And yes, I was drinking. Those drinks would lead into domestic violence with my ex. And or more mental abuse than the physical abuse, and name calling, ridiculing, cheating, the whole lot. And there I was, just trying to hold it together for my kids. I couldn't be screaming and shouting. I didn't. What choice did I have? Am I going to teach them screaming and shouting? I can't, can I? I taught them how to cower down to a man because I didn't stand up to anyone. I taught them to stay in a situation that was unacceptable, didn't I? Because I stayed in it too long. But eventually, when I escaped from those situations, I taught them at the end of the day, don't ever accept situations like that. If you're unhappy, get out. Don't change your personality for anyone. Don't start giving in parts of your life for anyone. You're not a bar and chip. Yeah, I was treated pretty cruel. I was treated as if I was only good enough to put those meals on the table, to iron those shirts. To be seen when it was convenient. Most of the time I was told to stay in the kitchen. Iron. I bought you an iron, he says. It's a new one. Steam press. Should help you get through it quicker. And then when you finish with that, there's my dinner. I bought you a dishwasher. After all, there is 11 children. 11? 11 all between us? You say children? Wow. Aren't I a child of my mother's? Aren't you a child of yours? That's 11 human beings under one roof. Did I get any help? No, I got a dishwasher. Did I ever get a meal? No. I got labels that were plastered on top on their food. Don't touch this. Don't touch the milk. You can't touch the top of the milk until I've had the cream. And it was labelled with their name. That's how deep it went. Let's label the food. Didn't stop there, because it goes into the world of domestic violence all you want, but it doesn't stop there. From the pattern of domestic violence, we'll just say that it came from the child abuse at the very beginning. Then you're weakened, you're groomed into that, what's acceptable, and you don't know where to take direction from these men, because these men are teaching you this is the way to be. And so what are you doing? You give away your self-esteem and you lose your soul, all for the sake of a man. And I realised something at the end of the day. You have to stand on your own 2 feet, because when you are in the midst of your storm, in my previous history, only I'm going to get my way out of that one and change the circumstances. Whatever storm comes, I'm the only one that can change the circumstances by applying action and finding the right people to help me through those storms. And luckily for me, I'm out and over those storms. I'm now raising awareness and getting people to find their voice and to get their life back. Yes, there are many people that were victims. Let's turn ourselves into survivors and not be a victim. You can have a life. Think outside the box. Think outside the box. You were born free. Remain